Well, I'm here in the Cabinet Office of the Welsh Government, and I'm joined by the First Minister of Wales, the Right Honourable Carwyn Jones AM. I thought I wanted to first of all start on the ramifications and consequences for Wales of the Brexit vote. It's now been almost 2 months since the referendum took place. Were you surprised at the result of the referendum?
Well, I heard lots of people who gave different reasons for wanting to leave the EU. Some of it to do with immigration, some of it to do with a general disenchantment with politics generally. Some wanted to kick the government in London. There were a number of reasons. We have to accept the result and that's it. From our perspective, we've had a great momentum in the last few years. Our unemployment rate is lower than England, lower than Scotland, lower than Northern Ireland, same for youth unemployment. And we've seen the best foreign direct investment figures for 30 years. The challenge then is to keep that momentum going and to understand what the best deal for Wales should be when Brexit happens.
And what, in your view, is how a post-Brexit Wales should look like?
What's absolutely crucial to my mind is that we should have access to the single market, goods and services. I've been in the US recently. Every single business raised this. What does it mean for us? We don't want tariffs. That affects our European operation. It would put us in a very difficult position in terms of attracting investment if we were seen as having a barrier in place, whether it's tariffs, whether it's a different regulatory system compared to the big market of the EU. Also for us, what's important is that we see our funding guaranteed. We were told by those who were in favour of Brexit that Wales would not lose out by a single penny, but we intend to keep them to that promise.
So in terms of invoking Article 50, when do you think that should happen?
I think it's unavoidable that it should be triggered in the first half of next year. There's no avoiding the result. I think if it went longer than that, people will start saying, well, there's some kind of attempt here to overturn the expressed view of the people of Britain.
And in terms of recent pronouncements from different parts of the country, there's been some quite strong language from certain quarters. How do you see Wales in a new constitutional framework which may inevitably ensue after the article is invoked?
Well, what we have now doesn't work. I think, first of all, there needs to be as much buy-in as possible to any deal that's on the table, and that means, to my mind, ratification of that deal by all four parliaments. There are good reasons for this. When it comes to farming and fisheries, for example, or regional economic policy, it's all devolved. The UK government has no role. So it wouldn't be right for the UK government to agree farming and fisheries policy, for example, without there being any input from the administrations, the devolved administrations that would be implementing that. But more importantly, we have to find a new way of distributing money around the UK. The Barnett formula won't do. There are no rules, basically. I mean, the Treasury makes its own rules up. We don't have the equivalent of Australia, for example, where there is a commission in place, where there are rules in place, where people understand how money is to be distributed. We just don't have that in the UK, and that won't last us in the future. We need to have certainty as to how money will be spent. What happens, for example, to farming subsidies? How will that money be distributed in the future? That counts for £260 million a year in Wales. We can't have a Barnett share of that. That means we'd have our share cut by about 3/4. So there are lots of issues there that need to be resolved, particularly finance, if the UK is to stay together in the future.
And I guess part of that, what comes from that, your answer there, is that Wales needs to be at the very heart of the negotiations going forward?
Yes, hugely important that Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland are part of the negotiations from the very beginning, and not right at the end, being presented with a fait accompli. We all have different perspectives when it comes to Brexit and how it should happen. And of course, there are some areas which are completely devolved anyway, where the UK government doesn't have a role in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. So hugely important then that we're part of that process at the beginning. So far, the UK government has recognised that, and it's important that that continues in the future.
And you've been, as you intimated earlier, you've been to America recently, and some of the key messages that you're sending over is that Wales is a great place to invest, Wales is open for business. How can we maintain and increase that momentum to ensure that new businesses like TVR and Aston Martin continue to come to Wales?
It's done through hard work. What we've done is to work really hard with various different companies. Aston Martin being one example. Just to quote what they said, they were impressed by the passion and professionalism of the Welsh Government. Investment doesn't arrive on your doorstep if you're not prepared to go out there and go looking for it, which is why I've been to the States. Ken Skates, who's the Secretary for the Economy, he'll be going to Japan. We need to assure reassure our existing investors, but keep the momentum going to make sure that we're proactive in getting investment into Wales.
So although initially disappointed with the Brexit outcome, hugely ambitious for Wales, hugely ambitious for the future.
Absolutely. It's a divorce, sure, but we have to work out what happens after the divorce. It doesn't mean, of course, that there are dark economic times ahead, as long as the deal is right at the end of the day, and that deal must involve tariff-free access to the single market. If that's in place, and that is crucial, then I've no doubt that it'll be equally as successful in terms of attracting business here in the future.
First Minister, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us.
You're welcome.